So in 2022, there's a lot of uncertainty. I think for most people, there's more uncertainty right now than most people have ever seen in their life, right? When you look at it from that perspective, the uncertainty with inflation and the direction of the dollar, the stability of the dollar, political uncertainty, where we're going as a country, our freedoms from a perspective of like health directives and like how the pandemic has changed everything, and you know, just the world, the uncertainty, that lack of certainty puts an element of lack of control into people's lives, and that creates fear, and then fear drives people's decisions, and nothing productive comes from fear-driven decisions. And so here's what I know. Hey, what's going on, cash flow hackers? It's Chris with Life 180, and this video we're going to be talking about whole life insurance as a place to store capital. One of the things that keeps coming up in conversation for me is the fact that, listen, Chris, I understand everything you're saying about whole life, but the bottom line is whole life insurance is still in US denominated dollars, and I have no faith in the government. I have no faith in the trust of where the dollar is going. And so therefore, why am I gonna put money into an asset that still at the end of the day is valued in garbage US dollars? Now, obviously, that statement that I just said is coming from a lot of crypto type people, right? A lot of gold bugs, a lot of people that don't have faith in the fiat currency system. I'm kind of torn on how I feel about that, but let me explain why I believe that whole life insurance is in fact the best place to keep your money. Because at the end of the day, people could say what they want to say. We live in the United States. We have to have dollars. You have to spend money. The crypto markets and other alternative markets have not advanced enough yet to be able to avoid participation in the US dollar system. And so you have no choice but to play ball. And so if that's the case, I got news for you. You're not smart enough, I'm not smart enough to be able to know or be able to figure out exactly when everything's gonna come to a head. The one thing I will say here is that I kind of believe you. I kind of agree with you if you fall into that camp. I run through the mindset that I believe that the US dollar is at a tipping point. We'll just call it a tipping point, right? And if it's at a tipping point, it could go one way or the other. A lot of people think like right now the dollar is going to get stronger, but unfortunately it's getting so strong so fast right now that could have its own kind of set of consequences, right? The other side of it is the Peter Schiffs of the world that believe that we're going to get inflated, we're going to lose our world's reserve currency, and you know what? That's a possibility. A lot of people believe that we're going to go into a digital currency, or that something else, it's going to be a one world currency or something of that nature. I've looked into all this, and my conclusion is I don't know what the heck's going to happen. And I think anybody that's sitting there and telling you that they know beyond the shadow of a doubt what's going to happen, I would say they're absolutely crazy. Or either that or they have a massive ego and probably a bit narcissistic. That's what I'd say to that. And so here's what I believe. And here's the reason I believe that whole life insurance is the best place to keep your money right now. Because A, like I said, you got to keep some money in US dollars, whether you like it or not. You can kick and scream and cry about it all you want, like my 4-year-old does when I make her eat her broccoli. But you're going to eat your broccoli, I promise. And it's just what it is. So there's that. But then let's look at the institutions, right? So we look at banks. You want to keep your money in a savings account or a checking account? Well, guess what? You need to keep a little bit there probably too. You don't need to. It's certainly a little bit more convenient to do it. And you can keep that money in there and you have access to it. You pay your bills out of it and so on and so forth. You go from there. Now, that's fine as well. You obviously earn money. Most people in this country at least earn money in US denominated dollars. So to be able to, you at least get it in that money. And so if you were to convert it into crypto or any other currency, you got to navigate it. There's going to be some expense and inconvenience and fees. So you got to figure all that out. But here's the bottom line. Whole life insurance has been around since 1840, we'll just say, actually a little bit before that. So let's think about this. I'm gonna actually go to the board right now. I wanna show this. I wanna like do a little math here and kind of like do a little bit of a history lesson. So I'm just gonna use this for the intensive purpose of of just doing a little history lesson. So 1840, whole life insurance companies started. Whole life began. Let's take a look at what was going on in the world. Do you know what was happening in the world in 1840? I don't know exactly what was going on, but I do know of this little thing called the Civil War. So 1860s, Civil War happened. So check this out. Did you know that between 1840, when life insurance companies were immature, new, budding ideas and concepts and institutions, they didn't have the financial stability and security that they have today, that we went through a couple different versions of dollars. Well, actually we had $1 change. Just I shouldn't even say dollar, it was a currency change, right? So, but I will say dollar because I already wrote it. So we had a change in what the currency was from when life insurance companies started to the 1860s when the Civil War happened. Civil War happens and we go down, and at the end of the Civil War, so by 1870s, we had another currency. So we had a second currency. But guess what? Then in that period of time, there was all sorts of inflationary issues. There were boom bust cycles. There were runs on banks. There were all these things that were happening. And so there was a big financial scare. I think it was 1907. And there was a lot of things that happened. And so in the 1910s, J.P. Morgan and all his crony bankers got together and they said, we need to create a financial institution that's going to be able to flatten out the curve. Does it sound familiar to anybody? Flatten out the curve. Let's flatten the curve out on the boom bust cycles. And so what do we have to do? And that's where the Federal Reserve Act was created. So here's the deal. J.P. Morgan and his banking cronies come up with the Federal Reserve Act. Where back then did J.P. Morgan and all his banking buddies, I'll say buddies instead of cronies, how about that? Where did they all keep their money? They all kept their money in whole life insurance companies. Why? Because even in the times of challenge, the recessions, the boom bust cycles, the economic crises, the Civil War, all these different times, before 1910, when the banks were having all these problems, what financial institutions paid, even in the currency changes, what financial institutions paid a dividend, paid a guaranteed return, and did it without fail every single year? Mutually held, participating whole life insurance companies. That's who. And so therefore, these banking guys, J.P. Morgan and all his people, they created the Federal Reserve Act to create a banking system for you to put your money into, right? So you put your money into their banking system, right? All the while, you put your money into their banking system, and they kept their money in whole life companies. They didn't even participate in those in the banking system. They didn't even keep their money there for the most part. Now, this is where it gets crazy. A lot of people are like, oh, that sounds too good to be true. Go look it up. It's called bank-owned life insurance. Banks are the largest holders of whole life insurance on the face of the earth. If you go look at the Rockefellers, you look at all these people that are these massive bankers and kind of business tycoons from back then, they all still to this day have family trusts and family banking systems set up utilizing whole life insurance. By the way, I'm going to say this, not index universal life. I'm not going to go on a tangent in this video. Not index universal life, whole life insurance only. You cannot use index universal life for this. You have to use, and banks, by the way, don't use index universal life. They use whole life insurance. And so here's the deal. This is why I believe whole life insurance is the best place to keep your money right now. Check this out, because they go through this. Now, 1913 is the institution of the Fed. The Fed gets started, right? So what is this? What is the Fed? That's basically the third version of the dollar, right? The third version of the dollar. And so from 1840 to 1913 was at a 73-year period. We have 3 iterations of the dollar, and we have a civil war, which, by the way, is worse than any war we're going to see right now. I don't know about you, but that war was fought on these shores. Our buildings burned. Our people died, killing each other. Whole life insurance companies still paid a dividend every single year. I don't know about you, but I think if a war broke out today in the United States and Americans were killing Americans, and sadly, I think a lot of people think that's a possibility at some point in time. Like, I don't think it's going to happen, but I hear a lot of people talking about it, right? If that were to happen, though, do you think your bank would hold up? Do you think it would be amazing? How do you think the markets would do? How do you think all this? I got news for you. Whole life insurance companies will weather the test of time. That's just the way it is. And this is why I love it so much, because they've been through all this. Now, why do I say all this? Why am I taking the time to kind of really get you to understand this? It's because we're going to go down here, and I'm just kind of going to build this timeline out. I just kind of didn't know where I was going to go with this, but here we go. So we're in 2022 right now, right? So in 2022, there's a lot of uncertainty. I think for most people, there's more uncertainty right now than most people have ever seen in their life, right? When you look at it from that perspective, the uncertainty with inflation and the direction of the dollar, the stability of the dollar, political uncertainty, where we're going as a country, our freedoms from a perspective of like health directives and like how the pandemic has changed everything, and just the world, the uncertainty, that lack of certainty puts an element of lack of control into people's lives, and that creates fear, and then fear drives people's decisions, and nothing productive comes from fear-driven decisions. And so here's what I know. New technologies, crypto, other forces in the world, with the US potentially losing the world's reserve currency standard that I should have added in here was 1944 in the Bretton Woods Act, right? I'll just do BWA. Bretton Woods Act in 1944. Right? And I guess I should put 1971 when we went off the gold standard. Went off it, right? So when we went off the gold standard, like when all these things are happening, well, those are all kind of crazy things that have led us to this moment where now we've kicked the can down the road for so long, we may lose a world reserve currency. Our currency may become so strong that it just changes the dynamic of the world economy. Crypto, other digital currencies may come in, and that's going to have an impact. But here's what I do know. None of us know what it's going to look like. Nobody knows how drastic it's going to be. Maybe some people know, but I promise you don't know them. None of us know what this is going to look like. And for you or for me or for anybody to sit there and have enough audacity, fake confidence, big enough ego, enough narcissism to think that we're going to know exactly what to do, when to do it, how to navigate the transition if and when the transition happens. Man, if you're that good, God bless you. Like, you should probably call me, email me, and I'll have you on the show, because you're awesome. Here's what I do know. Life insurance companies manage risk better than any other financial institution on the face of the earth. They're going to manage the preservation of the purchasing power of your money better than any other financial company. They've done it since 1840 to 2022. Do the math. It's 182 years. It's a long time. No other financial institution has a history of success like that. And so when we look at that and we go, okay, what have they done? They've had three different versions of dollars. They've had lots of world wars. They've had civil wars. They've had, we've gone to the world's reserve currency. Then we haven't lost it yet, but we had the gold standard. We did lose that. We've got a lot of boom bust cycles and all this stuff, a lot of ups and downs, a lot of bank failures. In 2009, there were 567 banks that failed alone just in 2009. Do you know only one participating mutually held whole life insurance company has failed from 1840 to 2022? 182 years, one company has failed. One. When thousands and thousands of banks have failed, right? So to me, when I look at this and I go, okay, who manages uncertainty? Who manages transition? Who manages purchasing power? Life insurance companies do. That's what I see. And then I look at the other side of this and I go, okay, One of my mentors told me once upon a time, Chris, if you want to be successful, you got to do what successful people are doing, emulate what they do until you get where they are and you have what they have. And so I look at this and I go, all right, who does this? You know, who has their money here? All the largest corporations. You can cry about it all you want. Corporations are putting their money there, getting a lot of tax advantages from it too. So all the liberal people out there can cry about the fact that they're doing that. Politicians, all the elite politicians. So Barry Dyke did a report and did a study. He found 54 congresswomen and men and Federal Reserve chairmen and officers that had their money, a lot of money, with whole life insurance companies. They do that. We have banks. Banks are the largest holders of whole life insurance in the world. So here's the deal, and I've done some videos on this. You take your money, you put it into a bank, they take your money, and they leverage it and put it into whole life insurance and get more life insurance on the books, because cash value inside of whole life insurance counts as a tier 1 asset on the bank's balance sheet. Think about that. Like, I don't know if you understand it. And so I'm just going to write this, even though it's kind of a cliche, and I hate cliches, but I'm just going to say the world's elite are using whole life insurance as a storage of value. So when I look at this and I go, all right, if I have the ability to participate in a whole life policy, by the way, this is, once again, I got to say it again, not IUL. This is whole life, y'all. I don't care what anybody on TikTok is telling you. This is not Index Universal Life. And they're positioning IUL like it is this, but it's not. So don't buy the hype. Don't buy the MPI BS. Don't buy Doug Andrews BS. This is not that, okay? And so if corporations, politicians, banks, and elite people are doing this, I don't know about you, but I want to be doing what they're doing. I want to be able to say, hey, if and when this transition, I want to put myself in a situation where I'm going to win one way or the other, right? If the world's reserve currency remains with the United States, if the US wins, if our currency gets stronger, if things keep trucking along like they've been, I want to have my money in a place where I know I'm going to beat inflation year after year over a long period of time, and I got to think long term with my money, and that is going to be whole life insurance, period, right? Now, if all my fellow crazy people are, well, I'll do quotes because you're not really crazy, I don't think. I think there's a lot of truth in what the thoughts and fears are behind it. But if that happens, right, and we lose a world's reserve currency and things kind of go off the rails and the United States kind of loses our position, which is not outside of the realm of possibility, eventually it's going to happen. Like there's never been a world domination power, for as long, well, I guess Rome, whatever, but there's a lot of things indicating that we have a lot of similarities to what Rome looked like at the end as well, right? And so if that happens, are you going to trust yourself? Are you going to trust your own judgment, knowing when to time it, when to actually buy crypto at the right place with the right risk to balance and manage, the purchasing power of your money, so you're not going to get massacred through the process, to make sure that your assets and the value of your money doesn't go down, that you don't lose it, that it doesn't get inflated away, that it doesn't get deflated too much, like all these different things. The bottom line is that's what life insurance companies do. So I'm going to have at least a good portion of the money that I'm looking to save and prepare, the money that I need as an opportunity fund, the money that I need as an emergency fund. I'm going to keep it inside of a whole life policy, period. And I'm going to do it because when that time comes, if it comes, and I pray to God it doesn't, but if it does, and I have my money here, they've proven the ability to pivot, to sustain, win, pay dividends every single year for 182 years. 182. No other company on the face of the earth, no other financial institution has been able to successfully pay positive dividends and returns and never have a loss for 182 years. Not one. Except for participating mutually held whole life insurance companies. So, Dave Ramsey, Susie Orman, all these people can rail against it all they want. That's fine. You know, I would just say poor people ask the wrong questions. They ask how much something costs versus what's it worth. And when I look at what is whole life insurance worth, it's worth peace of mind. It's worth my dignity. It's worth knowing that no matter what happens, I'm thinking intergenerationally right now. I'm not just thinking about, you know, this may get down the road. The one thing I don't have certainty about is my life, right? I don't know how long this is going to take. I don't know if this is all going to unwind as fast as a lot of people think. The one thing I do know is the government has shown a real good ability to kick the can down the road and to prolong things and prolong problems. That's what I do know. I don't know when this is going to happen. But what I have a lot of confidence in, a lot of belief in, is that by the time my grandkids are born, or my great-grandkids, the world won't look like what it looks right now. And there's going to be a lot of challenges. And it is more likely than not that the US will not be the dominant force that we are today, period. Think 2 generations ago. Think 2 generations ago. Your great-grandfather, your great-grandmother, your great-grandparents, if they, when they were alive, were to be told what the world would look like today, they wouldn't believe you. And remember, I started the video by talking about compounding effects, right? It's not just money. It's the same thing. This is unwinding at a faster and faster rate, and we don't know what it's going to look like. The compounding of the unraveling of all this, what used to take decades is now going to take years. And that's my concern. And so what I'm thinking about is intergenerationally. When Dave Ramsey tells you whole life is horrible because you're not going to need it, well, guess what? You need an emergency fund. You need safe money. You need to be thinking generationally. And the only financial institution around that will think generationally with you is a whole life insurance company, because that's what they do. Period. So, you know, I don't know. Like, call me crazy. This just seems like common sense to me when you understand it. And this is why I do what I do, because I believe if you understood what I understood, if you did the research and spent the 10,000 hours more that I've spent reading all these books and studying this stuff and interviewing people and going to events and you know, interviewing economists and doing all the things that I do, you'd probably be on the same page. And once again, my encouragement to you is stop thinking like a poor person. Stop asking, what does it cost? Whole life insurance, when you look at the cost of it, is nothing in the cost comparing to what happens if you don't have it, right? The real question is you should be asking, what's it worth? And what it's worth is generational wealth. What it's worth is you being able to accomplish what you want in your life, and also being able to set up a plan and a path and a system for your heirs, for your kids, for your grandkids, for your great-grandkids, to live a life that's going to be thriving no matter what's going on in this world. So that's my take. Got any comments? Comment in the comment section below. Happy to engage with every single one of them. Yeah, this was an intense video. I didn't realize I was going to get into all this stuff, to be quite honest with you. This is all, I don't know, it kind of started hitting me. So that's it. If you haven't already, this is just what I do. So make sure you subscribe, hit the bell, that way you're notified. I like to do videos like this. If you have any comments, if you want me to you have any questions on this that you want me to add on to, I'll film short content, I'll film long content responses. This is some of the most important stuff that I can think about in the world right now. Like literally, outside of your faith and your family, getting your money right now is the most important thing that you need to be thinking about. And if you're not, I implore you to start really thinking about it. So that's it. Have a blessed and inspirational day. We'll talk soon.